Hey guys, today's video is going to be on blood typing. We're just going to give you the basics of how blood typing works in the body. Okay, there's 4 basic blood types in the body, and it's actually pretty simple. A lot of students have difficulty with it, but this is how basically the basis of blood typing works. Of course, everybody has red blood cells. Red blood cells are the most numerous cells, numerous blood cells in the body. 45% of your total blood is made of red blood cells. And of course, the purpose of red blood cells, we've mentioned this in another video, the purpose of the red blood cell is to transport oxygen to the tissues by oxygen binding onto hemoglobin, which again is also on the red blood cell. But what the other, I guess you'd say, purpose of the red blood cell would be, it has a surface antigen, okay? This surface antigen is on the cell membrane, and that is what we call your blood type. So really the blood type, if you want to think about it this way, is like a surface marker on your red blood cell. Okay, it's on the cell membrane. Okay, so think of it as just, again, another way. There's many ways for your body to distinguish, itself from somebody else's. Okay, and the way, one of the ways is, again, this surface antigen we call the blood type. So it's pretty simple. If you're, for instance, an A blood type, you simply have the A antigen. Okay, if you're B blood type, you have the B antigen. And we'll write all this out in a minute here. If you're an AB, which is the most rare, that simply means you have both. You have the A antigen and the B antigen present. We refer to that as AB, which is its own blood type. Okay, and then if you're O, easiest way to think of O is, think of O as a big 0. So if you're an O, you have no antigen. Okay, so we kind of can write this out. Another thing too is they refer to these antigens, these surface antigens, as agglutinogens. So just another name that refers to specifically the red blood cell antigens for blood typing. So if we kind of make a little table of this real fast, we have our types. We'll just put blood types here. We would have the A. Of course, we'd have the B. Try to make a little column here. We'd have the AB, and we'd have the O. Okay? So then the question would be, what antigens, we just mentioned this, we'll mention it again, what antigens do these blood types have? Well, we said, well, if you're a type A, we said you're going to have the A antigen. Okay? So I'll just write this one out just so we're clear. If you're a type B, again, you're going to have the B antigen. If you're AB, you have both antigens. And we said if you're O, you have no antigens. Okay? 0 antigens. And that's the easiest way to think about it. Now, before we move on, we're going to mention antibodies next, but before we move on, if you think about it this way, and I'll just mention it now, it's really the antigen. When you're putting somebody else's blood in your body, for instance, it's really the antigens that are going to cause a potential problem. So keep that in mind as we're talking about this. So if I'm a type A, I can't just put anybody else's blood in my body. I could have a type A person's blood because that would be the same type. I could also have an O person's because it's the universal donor, and we'll talk more about that. But the key to kind of remember is putting somebody else's antigens, depending on what type they have, okay, into my body can cause a potential problem. So just keep that in mind. Why is that the case? Well, it has to do with the case or the fact that I might have antibodies in my body as well. I might have antibodies in my particular blood type that might react with the antigen. So certain blood types have antibodies. So let's put these here. Okay, the type A person has the opposite antibody. So they will have the B antibodies, and it's typically written as anti-B, just means B antibodies. So this is what the type A person has. They have the A antigen, which is our basis for the blood type, and they have B antibodies. I happen to be a type A. So I have the A antigen. If somebody, and notice I have the B antibodies. So what's going to happen is if somebody just said, hey, I'm going to give you type A, I'm fine. Because it's the exact same type, there's going to be no blood interaction or mismatched interaction. But if they were to give me a type B, now they're giving me the opposite blood type. What's going to happen is they're going to introduce the B antigen into my body, and my B antibodies are going to have a negative interaction. It's called agglutination. It's a transfusion reaction, or it's a mismatch, which is a big problem because it causes clumping of the red blood cells, which can lead to a heart attack or stroke. So that is going to be a big no-no. We never want to mix antigens with antibodies, okay? So talking about the B type has the B antigen and the A antibodies. So we'll write it that way. ABs have no antibodies. That's going to be important to talk about in a little bit. And the O's have both. So they have the anti-A and they have the anti-B. Okay? So there's one more category that we could talk about, and we could kind of put it just off to the side here, and that is whether you have a positive or negative blood type. So if you contain the D antigen, notice I'm not mentioning the D antibodies because those are not normally occurring in the body. It's just the D, that is a D antigen. That simply means you have a positive blood type. So you could have as many as, if you think about it, 3 antigens. Because I could have the A antigen, right? I could have the B antigen, which would make me an AB, and I could have the D antigen, which would make me an AB positive. Okay, so that would be, all antigens there. And I could have none. Because if I have the O, we already said you have no A or B antigens, right? And if I'm a negative, then I have no D antigen either. So that would be O negative would be no antigens across the board. And that's important because O negative is the universal donor. We'll talk about why that is in a minute. Sometimes the D antigen is written like a RH positive. So, you could just say, hey, you're positive, or if you ever see it written as RH positive, it basically means the same thing. Actually, that's a lowercase h, so it's RH positive. That just means you're a positive blood type. If you're RH negative, that simply means you have no D antigen present in the blood. Okay? So that's the table right there. And that's really the basis for blood typing. Now, how would you test it? But testing it helps you better understand. So let's just make a little table here. Okay? So let's say that I have A antibodies. We're going to write them as anti-A. I'm going to have B antibodies. And I'm going to have D antibodies just for testing purposes. Okay? What I'm going to do is, I have enough room here. I think I do. Okay, just for testing purposes. So here's my types again. This is going to be my A. This is going to be my B. This is my AB. And this is going to be my O down here. Okay? So what we're looking for, and you can do this very easily to your own blood type. All you basically need, you need the antibodies, okay? And you need 3 drops of blood. You literally prick your finger with one of those lancets. You put 3 drops of blood on a microscope slide, 3 separate drops of blood. You don't want to mix the blood, okay? 3 separate drops of blood, and then what you do is you drop 1 drop of the A antibodies onto blood drop 1, okay, and mix it in. And what you're looking for is a reaction, okay? We call it agglutination. The red blood cells will clump together, okay? What does that tell us? Well, again, we said when we mix antibodies and antigens together, the same type, we get that reaction, that agglutination reaction. That, I guess you'd say, mismatch type reaction. So the A antibody should react with the A antigen, okay? And so you get this clumping of the red blood cells, okay? So that's what we're going to see when we put this A antibodies on the A blood. When we put the B antibodies on the A blood, we don't get a reaction. So we'll just put an X through it. Why? Because the B antibodies are not going to have a reaction with the A antigen. Now, if the person happens to be a positive blood type, we said they have the D antigen. So then, yes, they will get another, we'll just draw it. They will get, let's say they're a positive blood type, they will get another reaction, okay? Because the D antibodies will react with the D antigen, okay? So that's the way you go through and figure it out. So if we go down to the type B person, we're going to get no reaction here for the A antibodies, but when we come to the B antibodies will react with the B antigen. Okay, so we'll get that agglutination reaction. Let's say they're a negative blood type. That means we'll have no reaction here under the D antibodies. Come down to the AB, we should expect to see a reaction and clumping of the red blood cells for the A antibodies and for the B. Why? Because we have both antigens present. Okay? Let's say they're AB positive, just to make something up, then we'll expect to see agglutination over here for the D antibodies. Okay? We come down to the O, the A antibodies is not going to cause a problem. Okay? Right? So we have no reaction. B antibodies is not going to cause a problem. We have no reaction. Okay? Let's say we're O negative. Then the D antibodies are also not going to cause a problem. And this is why we can put O blood in somebody else's body, anybody else's body, because when we put it missing O negative without any antigens, when we're missing all the antigens, we put it in somebody else's body, we get no reaction. There's no antigen to antibody reaction. That is key to remember. Just the opposite of that, ABs can receive from anybody because they don't have the antibodies. So they can receive. This guy is the universal recipient, right? So we'll just put universal recipient, and this guy, like we just said, is the universal donor, okay? AB positive would be technically, if you want to get totally technical, is going to be the universal recipient, okay? So O negative, again, being the universal donor. So this is a basic test. You know, we've done it in many years past to just give a little laboratory exercise of how to test blood type. We don't do it anymore, but I used to do it years and years ago. But it's a good visual of how to figure out your own blood type. So that's the basis for it. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, you can always put them in the comments. Thanks so much. Good luck. Good study.